morning.
Yeah.
I tell you what we discussed so far.
All right.
Hi, Dr. Hora.
Hi, Joan.
This morning we spent a few minutes discussing the Beatitudes.
Yes.
We went over them one by one with the idea that they were Jesus' principles in much the same way that we've been given the principles in metapsychiatry, that they encompassed what we needed to know.
Yes.
I had a question. We weren't quite as clear as we might be on what it means by saying, what he meant by saying, blessed are the poor in spirit.
Yes.
Could you make that more clear for us?
Yes. Well, poor in spirit means being aware of a need for more spiritual understanding. If you are poor in dollars, then you are aware of the fact that you are in need of more dollars, right?
Yeah.
If you are poor in spirit, then you're aware of the fact that you need more and more spiritual understanding. And this realization is the prerequisite to the attainment of PAGL. This is a basic motivation which brings us into metapsychiatry.
That was so helpful. We'll move on to number 2.
Okay, John.
Blessed are they that mourn.
Yes. Now again, I would like to preface this to make a general statement. All the Beatitudes have existential relevancy. What does that mean? It means that their meaning goes beyond the words to the point. The aim of these Beatitudes is to help us transform our modes of being in the world. For instance, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. If you read it literally, well, there's nothing to it. People who lose their loved ones usually mourn, and there are some friends who come around and comfort them. And then after a while, the whole thing is over, and one continues one's life as before without any particular change, right?
Yes.
This is the literal understanding of this beatitude. However, this would have made no sense for Jesus to make such a simple statement with no consequences. There must be a deeper meaning to this. And indeed, if we understand the process of mourning as suffering from loss of something that we were attached to, then we see that when we get depressed and grieve over having lost something that we were attached to, then it becomes clear to us that forming attachments is a very precarious condition, because if we lose whatever we were attached to, be it person, place, thing, or cherished notions, we usually go into a state of depression, which is a very painful experience. And therefore, what is needed is to understand that we must never get attached to anything except the good of God, which is spiritual. Only spiritual values, because those cannot be lost. Nobody can deprive us of these spiritual treasures. The Bible speaks of treasures in heaven, right?
Right.
So the import of this beatitude is that if you want to be comforted, If you want to be free of the danger of suffering, depression, you must be careful what you are cherishing and what you are attached to. And that is, once you understand that you can never afford to be attached to anything else but spiritual values and spiritual qualities, then your mode of being in the world is transformed. And this is what we call the existential relevancy of the Beatitudes. If we don't see the existential relevancy in the Beatitudes, then they are just platitudes. And
Beatitudes or platitudes?
if you don't see the existential relevancy in them, of course, Jesus wouldn't have given us platitudes, right?
Right.
So every beatitude must be read with this in mind. What was the intent of Jesus giving us this particular beatitude? And Jesus' aim was always to transform our mode of being in the world by bringing us to a realization of the fact that we are here for God.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome, John.
Hi, Dr. Hora. This is Danny.
Yes, Danny.
Are the Beatitudes, it seems that they're almost set up as an evolution of consciousness.
Certainly, the issue with the Beatitudes and everything that Jesus taught us is to bring our consciousness up to the level where we can see ourselves in the context of God.
So if it's set up in an order up to the point where we become persecuted and then we're
Now, before you make a joke of that, perhaps it would be helpful if you ask the question, what could be the meaning of this beatitude where Jesus said, "Blessed are you if they revile you and persecute you and say all manner of things about you without a cause," right?
Right.
What could be the beneficial and transforming element in this particular strange sounding beatitude?
That is a good question.
Yes, we can ask good questions, but can you give a good answer? Is there anyone among you who can explain this mysterious beatitude?
I think it may mean that it causes you to lose attachment to yourself, because that's the part that's being persecuted, not the God nature.
Well, it is what you say, there is some truth in it, but there is more than that.
Dr. Hora?
Yes?
This is Claudette.
Yes, Claudette.
The thought that comes to me would be something like the Zen master. That is, he doesn't seem to react to the ignorance around him, and someone else might think that he is hard or not caring.
Yes.
Would that be, people would think that his good was evil?
Yes.
Kind of way of looking at that?
Well, what is the Zen master's way of dealing with persecution and injustice and slander and malicious gossip and accusations, unfair accusations. Well, how does a Zen master respond to such a situation?
By understanding that it really isn't the truth, and he's recognizing it as an error.
Yes, and?
Compassion.
Yes, what kind of compassion?
By seeing the truth, he is helping to heal rather than to keep it in the error.
Yes. I remember two Zen stories. In one of them, when the master was in a situation like that, somebody was making slanderous remarks about him. He said, "Quads."
What?
Quads, which is bull in Japanese. And another one, when he was accused of... Are you with me?
What's a quad?
It's an equivalent of saying bullshit. And another Zen master who was being publicly ostracized and innocently accused of fathering an illegitimate child with a teenager in the community. Do you know this story?
I think we heard you tell that one time.
What was his reaction?
Was it that if you think so?
He said, "Is that so?"
Oh, yeah.
And I just, that's all. In other words, when you are being persecuted, you learn not to take it personally. You learn to not to condemn people who are accusing you and condemning you and assaulting you. You, as you said, have compassion, but above all, you understand that the force that is attacking you is not a person, but ignorance. Therefore, it cannot touch you. Jesus described it this way: "The prince of this world cometh, but hath nothing in me." So under such situations, we are learning to see that the enemy is always ignorance, and we are undisturbed. That too gives us an existential lesson. We are learning to not to be defensive and not to be afraid and to remain non-personal in face of personal attacks. We remain non-personal. See, the adversary and the accuser and the slanderer always starts by saying you or he, right?
Right. I had something that occurred yesterday that might have been something of a healing. Recently, after being having a relationship problem, I had a lot of lessons to learn. And just the other day, I heard from one of the parties something that seemed to disturb me, and all of a sudden, it seemed like the four horsemen came galloping in and tried to have a pity party. And all of a sudden, it just occurred to me, the thought just came to me, that as a child of God, I have no right except for spiritual, pay attention, except spiritual things.
Yes.
And it was like, well, I wanted peace more. I wanted I really wanted the land of PAGL more than to indulge in that. And as soon as that thought came, it just like it went.
Uh-huh.
It's amazing to me today that it just seems like it's gone. And I guess something like that must have happened.
Right, right.
And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah,
But it just came in and just flooded away everything else that was there.
yes.
To,
So John's point was well taken that the Beatitudes are analogous to the metapsychiatric principles because they are designed to help us to live more intelligently.
I suddenly realized, too, Dr. Vora, that, my goodness, if we really and truly did cherish peace, harmony, there would be nothing there. There would be nothing else there to intrude. You wouldn't want anything if you were peaceful. It was just beautiful to see that.
Yes, our attention is always on what God wants.
Dr. Roy, this is Marjorie.
Yes, Marjorie.
I wanted to understand the attitude, what are they who are merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
Yes. Well, what does it mean to be merciful, Marjorie?
Well, the idea that comes to me is compassion.
That's right, exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. We are not carrying a grudge against people who malign us or treat us unfairly. That's again another aspect of the same Beatitudes which we were talking about just a while ago, about persecution and slander, etc. So it is easy for us to be merciful if we depersonalize the attack or the injustice or the accusation. What do we mean by depersonalizing it? What do you think, Marjorie?
Something about forgiveness came to my mind, but I can't remember that.
No, we separate the tares from the wheat.
Separate the individual from the mistaken idea.
From the ignorance which he is manifesting. Right. Our enemy is always ignorance. It's never a child of God. Never an individual being. It's always ignorance. And now when we succeed in our thoughts, we succeed in depersonalizing the attack, then forgiveness and mercifulness is easy. Because how can you carry a grudge against ignorance, right?
Right. But then it's easier for us to recognize right away forgiveness or such a quality.
That's right, sure.
I had another question. Just before we called, Jan was telling us that breaking up the Beatitudes into 2 sections, the first 4 seem to pertain to receptivity, and about 5 through 8 seem to pertain to spiritual forgiveness.
Yes.
And it occurred to me while we were talking that receptivity and spiritual forgiveness are both ideas that would help us see the spiritual horizon a little better. It would broaden our horizon a little bit more.
Yes, right, sure.
Could you talk a little bit more about receptivity in the first 4 Beatitudes and spiritual forgiveness?
Well, what is receptivity? When we are talking to each other and we are open-minded, and we are listening with a motivation to understand and to have a clarity about what is being said, then we are receptive. We seek to understand whatever truth we can glean out of what is being said. So we are receptive. And we are also receptive to inspired ideas coming from the divine mind. So receptivity and listening and being blessed are all one and the same process. Now, what was your other question?
How spiritual forgiveness seems to broaden that spiritual horizon also, and in accordance with the last 5 Beatitudes.
Of course, there is no other kind of forgiveness possible except spiritual, because in the human mockery of affairs, people are always forgiving each other, but not really. Haven't you noticed?
Yeah. I was thinking of my students in class. I was going, I'm sorry, Miss Barker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't mean, it is really not possible to forgive anybody anything as long as we are seeing culpable persons rather than ignorance. So the parable of separating the tares from the wheat is indeed very helpful if we are interested in learning how to forgive effectively and permanently. Because the forgiver is blessed even more than the one who is forgiven. Of course, both are blessed in that process. Carrying a grudge is a tremendous emotional burden, and it can have crippling effect on people.
Is it possible to forgive permanently? I mean, nothing to be troubled with that?
Well, certainly, just as I have told you, if you depersonalize the injury, if you don't, there are many people who carry a lifelong grudge and are not aware of it because they have repressed it. But there is one sure sign which indicates that this is the situation.
What is that?
And that is compulsive behavior. For instance, I have known a young woman who had a compulsion to be loving all her life. She was so loving that people would just forever take advantage of her. And she would go out of the way to be loving and kind and generous towards them. And this was a compulsion with her. And this compulsion was like a big rock on her heart. And when we looked underneath this rock, we discovered a lifelong hatred of her mother. A severe hatred, and which she tried to keep hidden from herself by being compulsively loving. And there are many whenever we are compulsive about something, be it food or whatever, that would indicate that underneath this compulsion we are keeping something repressed, something which we don't want to look at because it would be too painful or too embarrassing.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Joan again.
Yes, John.
What you have been talking about has been the second half of the of blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. That's right, isn't it?
Right.
Somehow, in considering that beatitude, it came to me that the mercy we would obtain would be to be released from interaction thinking. Is that? It didn't get any clearer than that. Is that true?
Well, that is certainly a great mercy to be released from interaction thinking. But of course, it also points towards what blesses one, blesses the other too.
Yeah.
If we are merciful towards someone, then we can be merciful towards ourselves. And sometimes we suffer from self-condemnation very much.
Recently, in the midst of some troubles, it occurred to me that I needed to read one of Jesus' parables, which was the parable of the talents.
Yes.
And I read it, and I've read it many times, and it still seems puzzling to me. You had said recently that our talent given by God to us is of spiritual discernment.
Yes.
And the man in the story, the servant that was thrown out into the darkness, buried his talent.
Right.
Because he was afraid to use it, it said.
Yes.
Could you make that more clear for me?
Well, how many people are there who are afraid even to read existential metapsychiatry?
I never think of anybody being afraid to read it.
Oh, there are many who are afraid to read it.
What is the meaning of being afraid to read existential metapsychiatry?
Well, they are afraid that they would have to become spiritually minded and lose all the things which they cherish in the material, carnal world. For instance, somebody who is very much concerned or are attached to sensualism or personal mind power may be afraid to touch this book with a 10-foot pole. So he hides the potential which God gave him, the talent for spiritual growth and spiritual enrichment. He hides it, he represses it. There are people who repress their spiritual yearnings because they are too much attached to the world and the pleasures and the pains of the world. And then there are those who are just trifling with metapsychiatry or just reading it as a curiosity or just studying it a little bit. So they are profiting a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then there are those who are investing all their efforts and attention and devotion, and they are committing themselves to it. And they are reaping a rich harvest of freedom and joy and understanding and peace, assurance, gratitude, and love, right?
Yes. So when it came to me also in meditation, when I wasn't afraid, I just didn't want to. I should have paid attention, I guess.
Well, we don't talk about what should have been or what should not have been.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Linda.
Yes, Linda.
If we go back to let's our they that more, so they shall be comforted for a second.
Okay, let's go back.
Okay. I have a little problem with it. I don't really have a question formulated, but maybe you could help me.
Yeah.
The one way I can see where it's supremely releasing to say that we can only be attached to God and the good of God, that is, in another way, in one way it seems cruel, because I was just sitting here picturing there are a few people there that I love very much, that I am very much attached to.
Yes.
My sister, for instance.
Yes.
And if tomorrow she died, I would mourn, and I would be very sad, and what's more, I would feel justified in my tears.
Yes.
And I could just picture that if someone came to me and said, well, your problem is that you have no right to be attached to your sister, only to God, I might think they were unkind.
Well, nobody spoke here about right or not, that you don't have a right to be attached. You got yourself into hot water.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem any different to say it is troublesome to be.
Oh, there's a great difference. Because we respect people's right to have troubles. Nobody said that you have no right to be attached to your sister. You can be as attached as you would like.
But it still is unwise.
Well, don't you, you know that passage where Jesus speaks about leaving behind father, mother, and sister, and families, and houses, and possessions. And when he told a rich young ruler to give away everything that he had and follow him, don't you remember that?
Yes, I've read that.
So you can only follow Jesus if you have no other attachment, which doesn't mean that you reject your sister. You can still love. As a matter of fact, attachments are not really love, you know. When we are attached to someone, we are not really loving that individual. We see ourselves as dependent on them. Because there is a tremendous difference between love and attachment. Love is non-conditional, non-personal, benevolence. Whereas attachments are rigidly personal and fraught with anxiety and also compulsiveness. True love is liberation. It sets you free, whereas attachments immobilize you, enslave you, and fill you with anxiety. And at the same time, there is a constant irritability and a growing resentfulness. Can you imagine two people being shackled together with a chain and having to go through life that way? What would happen?
Well, I don't think they'd move about too well.
Right. They would become very irritated with each other, wouldn't they?
Yes.
I think I saw a movie or snatches of a film where a white man and a black man were in jail, and someone put a chain. They were chained together, and they escaped together from jail this way. And then they went to some terrible tribulations with each other. Well, anyway, attachments are very troublesome. And they are not synonymous with love, Linda.
Okay, if I was not attached to my sister, but I loved her, what would... Give me a break. Dr. Hora, they're laughing at me.
You're getting irritable, Linda.
They're acting they having kicking and screaming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, if I was not attached to my sister,
Yeah.
I loved her, what would my thoughts be about her?
You would bless her and let her be.
That's it, huh?
That's it, right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Nancy.
Yes, Nancy.
I'd like to go back to the part you were talking about, personalized attack.
Depersonalizing attacks?
Oh.
Yes.
It occurred to me that you didn't depersonalize an attack to become self-righteous. You forgave.
Who?
If you forgave an attack,
Yes.
or an attacker, I guess,
Yes.
without depersonalizing them,
Yes. You would become self-righteous.
yeah, is that right?
Very good point, Nancy. Absolutely. Very good point.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Faye.
Yes, Faye.
I would like to understand the meaning of, I kind of have the first part as worked out of me, but the part of inherit the earth.
Yes.
I first thought it meant psychiatry, we would inherit heaven rather than earth.
Well, we have translated this particular beatitude into metapsychiatric language. I wonder whether there is any one of you who knows it.
Blessed are the shortless, for their lives shall be fustless.
That's right. Congratulations. Who is this?
Well, Joan.
Hello, John. Yeah, that's correct. Faye, can you get it? Do you get it? Did you understand it?
Well,
Yeah, someone had said dominion over. Does that mean the same thing as being prosperous?
No, fustless means that your affairs will be effortless, efficient, and effective. If you learn shouldlessness. Somebody asked me a question. He said, I understand almost everything in your book, but what is shoelessness? I said, it's being barefoot.
I guess I just don't understand the part about earth.
About earth?
Yeah.
It means that in your daily life, while you are still on earth, things will go well with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Michael.
Michael, yes.
What actually happens in that area when things go well? I am working with trying to depersonalize it, making. At the conference, you mentioned that I had a personal God.
And I'm attempting to get away from that, but I don't understand what takes place when the life is perfect. It looks like things are going my way.
So what is exactly your question?
When things are harmonious.
Yes, right.
It's not that God is making people be nice,
Yes,
or things are going according to a specific idea that I have in mind.
yes,
What is exactly taking place? If God doesn't know anything about problems, then he's not fixing a problem.
yes, right. What does God know about?
Himself.
No, God knows harmony. God knows love. God knows intelligence. God knows vitality. And God has a wonderful sense of humor. But not as a person, Michael, but as a principle. God is the harmonizing principle of the universe. And when we are in proper alignment with this principle, then our responses to the exigencies of daily living are such that things are effortless, efficient, and effective.
It's still not clear, but I'll work with it. Thank you.
Work with it, Michael. Michael,
Yes, sir.
maybe you try to study up on principle. What is a principle in contrast to person? Do some research on it.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I should say, I was just thinking of Michael talking that maybe when we don't have the three E's, we personally are trying to control.
Yes, right. That's the essence of should thinking. The word should is a tyrannical word and implies an endeavor to exercise personal control over others or situations.
Which also is, we can, if we're in this should, means also that we would be controlling our happiness.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Right.
So to see harmony,
Yes.
it's sometimes difficult if we have this thing of just always being in control, that we control our harmony also.
Oh, yes. Sure.
Because the ego has to let go of that.
That's right.
Oh boy.
Dr. Roy, I'd like to ask you to clarify peacemakers also then. Blessed are the peacemakers.
Yes.
Could you clarify that beatitude also?
Yes. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is a peacemaker? Who is a peacemaker?
Well, we in the discussion came up with beneficial presence.
Yes. Yes.
Someone whose presence is healing and brings peace with it.
Yes. Now, people frequently confuse a beneficial presence with a beneficent person. Is Christy there today?
Yes, yes.
Yes, she wrote a nice article about the difference between a beneficial presence, a beneficent person. Now, a beneficent person will try to be a peacemaker by personally interacting with the interacting parties, right?
Yes.
hit everyone over the head and say, "You stop it, you fool," etc. Now, a real peacemaker, of course, doesn't make peace on the basis of interaction, but brings to light the fact that all interaction is illusion, that only omni-action is the real power, and therefore omni-action is always harmonious and peaceful. The real peacemaker is never a person, but a beneficial presence in any particular situation where he finds himself. So he doesn't interact with the warring parties, but he sheds light on the fact that omni-action is the only power, and omni-action enters into any situation when attention is turned towards issues rather than personalities. You see, when there is a conflict between people, if you listen in carefully, you will hear constantly saying you and I and he and them and they and you and me. The essence of all conflict is interaction and personalism. Now, when personhood is an interaction thinking is abandoned and attention is turned towards issues, then the omni-active love intelligence can take over the situation and a healing occurs. And that's what it means to be a peacemaker.
Thank you, Dr. Ross.
You're welcome.
Dr. Ross, this is Michael.
Yes, Michael.
Jill finished her discussion with the injunction of Jesus to be therefore perfect.
Yes.
Speak to the meaning of this thing.
Well, specifically, what would you like to know about it?
And you'll be perfect.
Oh. Well, of course, you know, there is a difference between perfection and perfectionism. Michael, could you explain the difference?
Perfectionism sounds operational.
That's correct. And perfection?
Would be a quality of being.
That's right. You see? So you have answered your question.
I didn't listen.
Where do we derive the quality of our being?
God.
Some people derive their consciousness of the quality of their being from God through the teachings of Jesus Christ. And then other people derive the quality of their being from whorehouses and bars and football fields and wherever. So it is the values which we cherish which will determine the quality of our being. Now, if the values which we cherish are Christ-like, spiritual values, and we are imbued with them, the quality of our being shall be increasingly more and more perfect.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Michael.
Dr. Hora, it seems if you look at the Beatitudes that Jesus stops at saying, blessed, it's such and such a quality, and then for there shall be the kingdom of heaven or something.
Yes.
Is there a meaning to making this connection continuously? He is continuously saying, apparently, there has to be a condition for attaining a certain quality of life.
Yes, right, of course. Of course.
Is this, could this be seen as formulating an existential law?
Yes, very much so, yeah, certainly. A principle. Principles are laws which are always valid, existentially valid. Ideas are principles. So Jesus was teaching people how to reach the good life and what are the qualities of thought which enter into attaining this kind of good life.
Well, actually, it is very comforting that we have such a clear-cut guideline
Absolutely.
for attaining these qualities: the kingdom of heaven, the earth, inherit the earth,
Yes.
in mercy see God.
Right, right. Peace. Everything is really a parallel to the 11 principles of metapsychiatry, or vice versa.
Yeah.
The principles of metapsychiatry are inspired by the Beatitudes.
Yeah. So they guarantee the good life.
Yes, right, sure. Well, I wouldn't use the word guarantee because it's not contractual. But that should point the way in the right direction. Jesus said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness.
Dr. Hora, this is John.
Yes, John.
You've written or said that things that we experience that seem good are not necessarily good, and things that seem troublesome or difficult are not necessarily bad.
Where did I write that?
You did write that?
Yeah, I just asked you where was it that you read it?
It's just an idea that came to mind that I remembered from hearing you.
I see. All right.
Could you elaborate on that? If you in fact said that, or am I making that up?
Well, I don't remember whether I said that, but it reminds me of the Zen koan, which I like to quote. Nothing is as it seems to be, but neither is it otherwise. Have you ever heard this one?
Yes, I have.
Did you wrestle with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it? See, asking me the meaning.
No, I'm not asking you to explain it. I can recommend you to meditate on it a great deal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Fern.
Yes, Fern.
I was looking at the fourth Beatitude, they that hunger and thirst after righteousness.
Yes.
And we spoke about being a seeker, seeking right thinking,
Yes.
right seeing,
And right knowing.
and right knowing.
Yeah.
But how can we hunger and thirst after righteousness? What allows us to take that more than other things.
Well, what do the word hunger and thirst mean?
Could it be for other appetites and other desires?
Well, that's true, but it simply means an urgent desire, an urgent interest, an overriding interest in understanding the truth. And if you are sincerely interested, you seek and you will find. You ask and you shall receive. You knock and it shall be opened unto you.
The only idea that comes to me is that our overriding interest in righteousness comes after everything else has given way.
Well, that's,
Leads to suffering.
yes, most of the time that is the case.
Is there any way to hunger and thirst without hurting?
Without suffering, yes, through wisdom, but that's a rarity. You know, we become seeker either through suffering or through wisdom, or to both. Here and there are some blessed individuals who are seeking the truth just on the basis of pure wisdom.
What is that wisdom that would help you to the truth?
It's a special grace.
So it's given to us through the grace of God
Right.
to know to seek
Yes, right.
before it hurts,
That's right.
pushes us.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Fern.
I wanted to ask the same thing, Dr. Hora. What is the meaning of wisdom?
Okay, ask it.
What is the meaning of wisdom?
I just told you.
Right here.
2 minutes.
What is the meaning of unreceptivity?
Being interested in something else. What archery.
Gee, well, that would be embarrassing there. No worries, just one word, eating.
Eating, huh?
It's interesting to be interested in eating.
Yes.
More interested in eating than thinking to be interested.
So you hunger and thirst after good food.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we didn't ask you about the meaning of pure in heart.
Pure in heart?
Yeah.
You don't know that?
We discussed it as a single eye, someone mentioned, and that
Yeah.
kind of coincided with principle number 1, but
Purity of motive. The heart is a symbolic seat of motivation. If our motivations are pure, then our progress is easy.
You said the heart is the symbol of motivation?
Yes, a symbolic seat of motivation. And if our motivation is to see God, just because we cherish spiritual values, then we shall see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Thou shalt have no other interest before the good of God, which is spiritual.
You're going to Edmond, Dr. Hora.
All right, Jan.
Thank you very much.
God bless you all.